So we went last year, right?
It's just that we also have a nice issue. So I'm trying to get one every time.
And the proper meeting it with.
So just. But that's. Just. It helps.
I wasn't trying. It just came out. Okay, well, that was good. I wasn't even trying.
Red Dog Charlie to Mother Hen. Izetta, are you there?
I am.
Okay, then I'm just
Oh,
checking
sorry,
my,
with the computer.
my
off.
mic. All right. I'm going back to mute.
Otherwise we get that.
It's cozy.
It's fun of them.
Assistant mayor's here.
Dead center. Perfect. That's where you want to be. Dope starts in 10 seconds.
So
What is it here? I'll switch.
No, no, I'm good. The elder statesman gets the center seat there.
Yeah. What's that about?
Part of Lisa's presentation.
Baldwin Saloon. So ad for them or a picture. Are they open again?
Mayor, everyone's here.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have 5:30. We're going to get started with the April 24th, 2023 regular city council meeting. As the mayor, I'll be presiding, but I have to depart the meeting at about 6:45, whereupon our council president, Tim McLaughlin, will take over the meeting at that point. And there he is waving. Okay, could I ask our city clerk to call the roll?
Counselor Richardson,
Present.
Counselor Runyon.
Here.
Counselor Long,
Present.
Counselor Randall. There he is.
Present.
Counselor McLaughlin
I'm here, present.
and Mayor Mays.
Present. Could I ask Counselor Richardson, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
You bet. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation of God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Got a lot of echo going on.
Thank you, Counselor. Item 4 is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
You able to turn him up at all, volume wise?
Rich, can you raise your volume a little bit?
It's at 100.
Okay.
Are you having a problem hearing me?
A little.
Okay, I'll speak up.
There's speakers back there. There are no speakers here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll second it.
I didn't catch who made the motion.
I did, Mr. Mayor. Counselor
Okay,
Richardson.
It's been moved by Counselor Richardson and seconded by Counselor Runyon to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Laughlin, aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Presentations and proclamations. Item 5A is Climate Change Committee presentation. Counselor Richardson, do you want to kick it off or introduce someone else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our presentation is brought this evening from Debbie Farrar and Lisa Gamby here at the table in front of us. So I'm going to let them speak. They have a presentation prepared. And with your permission, Mr. Mayor, they'll take it away.
Please proceed. Please introduce yourselves, Lisa and Debbie.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Mays, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Debbie Ferrer, and I'm here tonight with Lisa Gamby. We are 2 of the 10 members of the City of the Dalles and Wasco County Joint Climate Resiliency Committee. We're here to present you with the findings and recommendations of our last year's work. So I think we can probably all see the impacts of climate change in our community and across Oregon. Our snowpack is declining, threatening our water supply. Our agricultural lands are experiencing record long-term drought. We are witnessing increasingly frequent and severe wildfires, which threaten our forests, our farms, and our homes every summer. The smoke from these fires has seriously compromised our air quality in recent years. I'm sure you all remember when the Dalles hit a state record of 118 degrees 2 summers ago. You might not realize, though, that the number of days over 100 degrees has been increasing. In 2021, we had 20 such days over 100 degrees. Last year, we had 22 such days, compared to generally fewer than 10 such days in most of the past years. The effects of climate change impact our health and our well-being. They will stress both our people and our infrastructure. While this global problem is for sure too large for any community or even any country to resolve alone, responding to climate stresses at the local level can be and should be seen as an opportunity to build a healthier, more prosperous, and more resilient community. In this report and in the rest of this presentation, we focus on those opportunities for feasible, affordable, local policies and programs that will reduce our vulnerability to the impacts of climate change and improve our quality of life. But before we get to some of the specific recommendations, we'll give you a quick overview of the process that produced them. In December of 2020, I and other members of a local group called Protect Oregon's Progress came to you and asked you to form a climate task force, and you said yes. Thank you again for that. I hope you'll find with this report that it was a good decision. The mayor then interviewed and invited people from the community and from stakeholder agencies to be a part of that task force, which convened for the first time in June of 2021. Task force met monthly with subcommittee meetings more often, and the first order of business was to define our mission. Now, for those of you who have worked on a mission statement, they always look a lot easier to produce than they actually are. And we spent probably the first 2 months going back and forth about what exactly was our mission. And in the end, this is what we came up with, and it kind of guided us through the rest of the year. So the mission of the Climate Resiliency Committee is to address the increasing impacts of climate change. We will recommend local, affordable, and achievable actions and strategies to the City of the Dalles and Wasco County. Once we had a mission defined, we started by researching what is already happening in our community. And we were very pleased to see that there is a lot of work already going on in our community. This work that is happening, that was already happening, can be found in Appendix B of the report in your packet. We call that the Local Climate Asset Map. Next, we researched what other communities have done, focusing primarily, did I get ahead of myself? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, you're next. We researched what other communities have done, focusing primarily on communities in the Northwest. And fortunately, there are many communities in the Northwest that have been engaged in this work for several years, and we learned a great deal from their experience. Next, we drafted an extensive list of possible actions, a compilation of actions other communities have taken. And then we removed those that didn't meet our mission statement in that they were local, feasible, and affordable. And we also removed those that are already being addressed by other agencies in the area. For example, with respect to water and wildfires, there are already other agencies, including our own city public works department, who are working on issues like water and wildfire. So what you have in front of you then is, it represents what this committee believes is in need of action, things that the community does still need to address. And then finally, we researched funding opportunities, and there are literally, surprisingly and pleasantly, billions of dollars available. We'll say a bit more about those later, but you can see some of what we found in Appendix A of our report. So now Lisa's going to share with you some of the specific actions the committee is recommending.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. So the packet that you have in it for the recommended actions, you'll notice that there are a lot more actions that are included in that packet. It's a longer document, And with the excellent help of Dr. Kelly Housley Glover from the planning department, who is on our committee, she helped to really kind of frame these ideas in terms of, well, what is the problem? And then based on what the problem is, what do we as a community value? And then the action statements of how do we address as a city and a county, and even as citizens of the city and the county, what might we be able to do? So you'll see that there's a mix of recommendations that are based on things that the city of the Dalles could do, things that Wasco County as a government organization can do. And then there's further ideas that are, what are some ideas that citizens can participate in? So the first problem is that greenhouse gas emissions have far-reaching environmental and health impacts. My lovely assistant will be forwarding the slides for me today. So the first thing that we value in our community is efficient use of energy. So you'll see here that some of the recommended action items for this would be really first and foremost, conduct energy audits of city and county facilities. And again, if you go into the appendix sections, there are corresponding funding opportunities for the city and the county to pursue those. Another one would be to explore creating a local incentive fund for residential or commercial solar installations and electrification. And in fact, I think Kurt Conger is in the meeting tonight, and Kurt works for Northern Wasco County PUD, and they've been doing extensive work already on creating some of these programs. And so those are some of the additional things that you can see in the packet, especially in the asset map section. And then the next thing that we value is reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So because we are contributors to greenhouse gas as government entities, we value that we would reduce them where possible. So one of the first things that we might consider between the city and the county is to develop a formal, technically informed climate action plan. So you'll note that this document is not a climate action plan. We don't have any standards that we've set for what greenhouse gas emission reductions would be. We're literally talking about the resiliency of the committee and how we have some feasible actions. If we wanted to get more formal, that's one of the recommendations, is that we could actually create a climate action plan with set target goals. Many of the cities and counties that we researched had done that exact thing and are tracking those metrics. Another one is to consider directing staff to focus on the funding opportunities. So again, you're looking at implementing these ideas into your own practices at the city or at the county. Then there is both funding links in there, but it would be to direct staff to say, hey, you have this project going on. Perhaps you're going to remodel a space. What might you be able to do to reduce the some of the impacts from greenhouse gas emissions with that? So one of the other problems, fossil fuel use is a significant local contributor to greenhouse gas, and it should be reduced. And I will just mention briefly that the photos that are in this presentation are photos that I have taken here in Wasco County. So this one shows a photo that's actually from my driveway on one of the worst air quality nights during the summer firestorms that we've had. So again, looking back to, this isn't something that's happening somewhere else. This is happening to us here in our communities. The former photo was from the fire outside of Dufur the summer before. So as in regards to fossil fuel use, we value alternative fuel sources that can support a thriving community and economy. So what are the other alternatives we have? And how do we provide strategically placed, for instance, recharging stations for electric vehicles? And we have some of that going again, as you've noticed, and that's in the climate, it's in the asset plan. But for instance, there's the charging station down at Lewis and Clark Festival Park. And that's great because that allows people who are traveling out here for tourism to have a place to recharge. But why not look at having parking and charging stations for our own fleets? Another thing that we value is encouraging multiple types of transportation to reduce fuel dependence and promote local air quality. So I had to say that this term multimodal transportation, it's a mouthful. And what it really means is that you have more than one type of transportation, right? And that's a kind of a big lift, because if you're in the Dalles, we now have the Link, and that is an increasing system of public transit that we don't have in South County, for instance, where I live, other than the Tuesday where the bus goes back down. But it's also a matter of, are you a walk-friendly community? Are you a bike-friendly community? And do your paths of transportation interchange to those trails and paths so that people could take public transportation and be able to walk somewhere else? So the third one is that the built environment can both generate a large percentage of greenhouse gas emissions, and it also offers opportunities to buffer climate impacts. So the built environment means, what are the emissions that you get from the buildings that we use that have to be heated and cooled and constructed and maintained? So that's one of the things that people often think, well, fossil fuel is just the major contributor, and it really is that 40%, I believe, of greenhouse gas emissions around the world come from the built environment, our buildings. And if you've ever been in the Wasco County Courthouse, say in my office on a winter day, where my single pane, lovely wavy glass window lets in a fair amount of draft, then you know what we're talking about, because you have to be running those heating systems almost entirely. I can't have a meeting and actually run my heater at the same time, as much as I love the courthouse. So some of the ideas here is that we value a built environment that's both resilient to extreme weather, but it also minimizes greenhouse gas emissions. And so a couple of opportunities here is to identify solutions for reducing built environment emissions, starting again with city and county facilities, and then also to look at setting or reviewing local codes and design standards to support and incentivize programs or actions that people might be able to take. So next problem, climate change, and this is the one that we see most visibly, is it will result in increasing average temperatures and erratic and extreme weather events. So again, this is from top of Ty Ridge, showing an extreme thunder shower that was coming through. That also just happened to have a little bit of a rainbow in it. That'd help us. So what we value here is safe spaces to congregate that will lower urban heat island effects. So the first two slides that we use in this presentation, the first one shows City Hall as it was on a day where the air quality was substantially impaired. And the next one in that shows a photo of, it's a photo illustration of what City Hall might look like with a beautiful tree canopy plaza in front of it. So really having those spaces where people could congregate outdoors and have some buffer from the elements and be able to be outside more often. So one of the many actions is increase the tree canopy throughout the Dalles. And then we value other opportunities for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So partner with utilities. We've got some excellent programs, again, that our local utilities are doing to provide education, incentives for home energy audits, electrification, and energy efficiency. And then the final problem is that ongoing changes, both in climate patterns, natural resource concerns, but also state and national policies and local priorities require continued attention. And so one of the things that we value is that local governments, which includes City of the Dalles and Wasco County, as well as any of the city entities throughout Wasco County, right? That the governments and leaders are diligent about keeping a focus on climate change. And so some action items that could be taken there would be to form a local stakeholder group to explore collaborative policies, outreach, and action. And another one could be to schedule regular climate impact and action reviews. involving both staff and elected officials. So the idea is that this is not a document that gets set on the shelf and doesn't get visited on a regular basis. It's what can we start doing to have ongoing and continuous action and review to say, hey, how did that go? Did we implement some stuff? What was the impact? How did that look? How did it work? Is there a better way to do it? Is there another city that could adopt it within Wasco County? So those are the ideas that, much like strategic plans that can get set aside, we want to encourage that this becomes a living document and that the actions do have some form of continued review and use. And then obviously one of the major issues is water supply. So we do value follow through for the health and well-being and sustainability of our communities, starting with water, because that is obviously an immediate impact that we're seeing, and we appreciate there's been a fair amount of work that City of the Dalles is doing, right? How do we make sure that we have adequate water supply for the citizens, especially as more and more people continue to move here? Okay, now that it's to the good news, I get to give it back to Debbie.
Thanks. And I just want to reiterate what Lisa said at the start, and that is that, especially for the audience here, that what we showed in this presentation is just a sampling of the action recommendations that we've made. And so what the council has in its packet has a complete list of recommendations. So yes, there is good news. In fact, I think it's great news. And that great news is that now is a really, really good time to begin considering many of these recommended actions, because both our state and our federal governments are making huge, really even historic investments in climate action. So there's never been as much money for these kinds of projects as there is right now. Making plans for these recommended actions will put our community in a much better position to access some of these funds, which can make our local taxpayer dollars go a lot further. And our committee looked at this and called this our win-win-win situation. Some of these funds, so win number one, extending our taxpayer dollars. Some of these funds are already available for all kinds of projects, including more electric vehicle charging stations, electric school buses, carbon sequestration projects on our agricultural and forest lands, improving the resilience of the electrical grid, and making renewable energy such as solar more accessible to residents, to local businesses, and to local governments. In addition, our state legislature is currently considering some wonderful legislation, such as my personal favorite, the TREES Act, which would provide grants to communities like ours to buy more trees and to develop our green infrastructure to keep our neighborhoods shadier and cooler, healthy heating and cooling for all to help lower income families install high energy efficient heat pumps to heat and more importantly, to cool their homes, which is becoming a real necessity as our temperatures get warmer. And another bill, the Natural Climate Solutions Bill, to increase carbon sequestration on our natural and working lands. And these are just a few. There are quite a few more climate-related bills currently working their way through the legislature. And those will provide funding to communities like ours if we choose to apply for it. Win number two, actionable recommendations. In addition to reducing our own contributions to climate change, these recommendations will make our local governments more prepared for increasing climate impacts in the future. They'll make our public buildings and spaces more efficient and more safe for employees and citizens. And win number three, increasing our quality of life. The actions that we have recommended will make our community more resilient to future climate impacts. The environmental benefits will also bring economic advantages to our community, save our citizens money, and hopefully make our neighborhoods more livable and protect human health. So here's that second slide that Lisa was talking about, what a piece of the community could look like with a little more green infrastructure. And you can kind of feel the difference there. Feels cooler, feels, I don't know, more peaceful to me. So we want to leave you with this future image of City Hall, one that is part of a more inviting, more livable, more prosperous, and more resilient community. The actions we take now are a necessary precursor to that future. And for that reason, we ask that you adopt this committee's report and begin using the recommendations in it to inform your decision-making going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrer. Thank you, Ms. Ganby. And I guess at this point, I'll allow the city council to ask any questions of our committee members. Does anybody on the city council, please raise your hand so I can see from my have any questions? Committee members. I see Mr. Schwartz is here. He was on the committee.
And Kurt also.
And Kurt Conger is here. Thank you, Kurt, for your service too. Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Long.
That's okay. I actually didn't have a question, but I did want to thank the committee for their hard work. And it's my understanding that they came to these, that this was a unanimously put forward, these recommendations, which I think is important, just because of the variety of people and represented on the committee. And I know they put a lot of hard work into it, and I appreciate it. And I especially appreciate the fact that they've given us actionable items and funding options. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I would just mention, Mayor Mays, that the PDF that you have, the documents, all of the hyperlinks are actual active hyperlinks. So if you want to see, be taken to the website where the grant funding is done, or you want to see what somebody's been doing in locally with stuff, all of those are hyperlinks to take you directly to it.
Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, seeing last call for questions or comments.
I'll speak very briefly if everybody else has had a chance to ask any questions, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. Please proceed, Councilor Richardson.
Well, I'm not going to belabor it, but I want to say thanks to Debbie and Lisa, who were instrumental in the committee work, and thank you to our fellow committee members. We did have, I did not ask, but I believe we had a very politically diverse group of people. Very much like the Dells. And this was very much not a political process. It really was a number of local citizens coming together to ask questions about sort of a tough topic, something that's really hard to get our arms around. And I'm proud of the work. I think we came back and filled the ad hoc committee's mission, which is to come back with recommendations in a year. I think we beat that by a month or so. And just to be clear, I think the ask, or what I would ask my fellow councilors to consider, is to adopt the report and direct staff to take it up and come back with thoughts on how to prioritize and implement in a few months. Say there's a number of ways to get into these various recommendations. They might be looked at thematically. They might be looked at chronologically. Staff will have some really excellent ideas on which are immediately actionable and which might need some further steps or study. So that's really, I think, the bottom line here. This is not the last word on sort of local climate action. It's our hope that it's the start of a conversation.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson, and thank you for chairing the committee. It seems to me we have two alternatives. One is to do as Councilor Richardson has suggested, that is to adopt the plan and direct staff to come back to the city council with some ideas on how to implement it, or at least part of it. And the other is if the city council feels they need more time to digest the report, come back maybe in 2 weeks and adopt it at that point. So what is the city council's pleasure? Like, unless you have a third alternative, I see that as the two alternatives.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Runyon.
Councilor Runyon. Looking madly through my city emails and I'm not finding a supplemental that had this report in it. Saw it on the agenda, but not the full report.
No, it's part of the agenda.
So anyway, I'm a little reluctant to adopt it now without having a chance to go through the hyperlinks, whatnot, and read a little more about it, which is my usual way of doing things. I apologize for that, but I hate to direct staff to be doing something I haven't seen all the pieces to myself. But I'm willing to look at it again. I think the 2-week alternative would be a good idea anyway.
Okay. Did anybody else have a problem accessing the report? No?
No, this is McLaughlin. No, I read the report.
Okay.
No,
well,
I have a
Council-
half a dozen ones here from Izetta on a number of different things, but I'm not seeing that one. I don't know why.
Well, with respect to Council Runyon's request, does anybody have an objection to tabling this for 2 weeks, give him and everyone else a further chance to digest the report and its recommendations and have it on the agenda for May, is that 10th,
8th.
8th? If so, somebody can either make a motion to adopt the report and direct the staff, or can make a motion to table the report until May 8th.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion
Go
to
ahead.
table the report until May 8th.
Thank you, Counselor Long. Is there a second?
McLaughlin. Yeah, McLaughlin will second that.
Okay, it's been moved by Counselor Long and seconded by Counselor McLaughlin to table the report and act on it on May the 8th at the city council meeting. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say that I'm doing that because I think it's a great report, but I think it's worth due consideration and also for a chance for the public to give feedback as well to us in case there's anything we want to do before we adopt it formally or vote on whether or not we're going to adopt it formally.
Right. Well put.
This is McLaughlin, and I'm prepared to move it forward tonight. However, in light of Mr. Councilman Runyon not being able to see this prior, I think it's wise to move it to the next meeting. So that's my support.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Motion carries. Once again, thank you, Ms. Ganby, and thank you, Ms. Ferrer, for being with us tonight. And Mr. Councilor Richardson, you may want to ask your committee to come back on May the 8th and be in attendance at the council meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
I'll just
you.
add one more thing, that during those 2 weeks, feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have.
Great. Thank you all very much again. Good work.
Good
Thank
job,
you.
guys.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 5B, which is the Dalles Chamber of Commerce Tourism Year End update. And I can't see if Lisa Farquharson, is she here? I don't see her.
I'm here.
Ah, there she is. She's sitting right there where she should be. Okay.
Sometimes I follow the rules.
Please introduce yourself. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
So good evening. I'm Lisa Farquharson with the Dalles Area Chamber. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and the City of the Dalles staff tonight. First off, I want to give you guys a special thank you. The City of the Dalles just made my whole team smile with the cleanup down between 1st and 2nd Street. all of those curbings in between the parking looked fabulous. The Public Works Department did an amazing job of putting out all of the parade route signs and then the road closures for us to accommodate a very busy but successful Northwest Cherry Festival, which just ended last night at 5 p.m. So I just want to say thank you. It was great to go down there and see everything just cleaned up. And I did a check this morning. We're getting there, getting everything back to where it was last Friday. So thank you. I want to start. You have a pretty extensive report, which includes last year's scope of work, its budget that you guys approved, and then it has a lot of reports following that. But before we get to any of that, I just want to highlight some things that have happened this past year so that you can have that. And then we can just dive really quickly through some of those final reports and then get to the new budget and the new scope of work. So first off, I will always like to give you an update what we've done regionally. I'm a part of the Hood Gorge region, and this is a Travel Oregon designated region. We have a representative that is our RDMO, the Regional Destination Marketing, and we do things jointly as a region and making decisions for all of us. What can we do to increase tourism, the awareness of that whole area? So I have given all of you, and for those who are on Zoom, you have a copy waiting for you. It is called Taste Bound. This is a cookbook that our region put out. And so there's recipes and items that can be locally sourced from each one of our communities. And you will recognize a couple of the businesses in here and their chefs. They are from the Dalles. And I wanted to give you a final report. This was also done digitally and hard print, and Travel Oregon had special funds so that none of our regions had to pay for the printing of it. But so far there's 350,000 downloads of this book, and only 35% of those are Oregon. So it's going everywhere and they are loving this book. And some of the items, like I said, are locally sourced here, some from Sandoz Farm and some from our different farmers sourced that you'll see at our farmers market. So we're pretty excited that we get some exposure through this. And it's a lot of fun. So you can try some of these recipes at home too. So that's what's happening there. We also are going to be doing a new thing as soon as our fiscal year comes around in July. It's called a resident sentiment research. And we're doing this unified as a region. We'll be sending out surveys to the residents of all of these tourism communities and asking them their expectations. What are they hoping for? What bothers them? What would they like to see? And so, and of course, we want to take all of that information and see what we can do to be the best stewards of what we do as a region. So that'll be happening coming soon. And then I want to just kind of piggyback on some of these things that I just heard about the EV stations and doing those and doing more of those. So I'm happy to announce the chamber is actually working with PUD, and we will be putting an EV station in our parking lot along with the car share. So we're pretty excited to be working with PUD. They have a grant, there's incentives and all of that. So there's no cost to the chamber at this piece, and we will be able to house those. And they're hoping that the car share being at the chamber instead will be much more visual. So people will have that, and then we'll help promote it. And then the EV station will be there to encourage our tourists to be charging, and it's just still walking distance to the downtown. So we're pretty excited about that. But the region is also in the process of creating more EV charging stations in all of the tourism destinations. So they're working with our community to actually put more into the Dalles and along in every community that is in our region. So the Rare Student is working on those and incentives. And there's even dollars designated to our region from Travel Oregon for these stations. So we're going to be putting those and adding more to our community also from the tourism side. So it won't be just all the responsibility of the city to put those in. So with that, I am going to do some quick highlights of those things. I always let you guys know where we are, what we're doing, and then we can dive in if you have more questions. Lodging, I have given you this report. You guys have had it for a couple of weeks. It shows typically where we are compared to last year. And that lodging report is just past last year's documents. And you'll see lodging report for July through February, because that's what we have accurate as far as data goes. So you're going to see that our lodging is down this year, and it started going down a little bit about 6 months after they made international travel open because of COVID. So we had really good numbers all over our state before they opened up international travel. And then, of course, everybody wanted to go abroad. And as soon as they opened that up, people need about 6 months to plan for those. We started seeing a small drop in our lodging. It's not huge, but there is a drop. But we talked to Travel Oregon just recently. They're predicting that as soon as the official season starts, about May, June, we're going to be exceeding the rates of 2022 and 2019, because those are our last two healthy ones that we have. Obviously, 21 and 20 were due to COVID different numbers. So I wanted to let you know that we're doing that. And you can see the trend when you're looking on that lodging report that it's not a huge dip, but we're trending along sometimes the US and then the Pacific. And then we're not even too far off from the Hood Gorge. But I know that we are already climbing and going back up on some of those numbers. And we'll keep you posted on that, but we are seeing the trend. And the CEO, Todd Davidson, has been looking and studying. He's got a whole team, and they're predicting that we're actually going to exceed our tourism numbers, and we need to be prepared for lots of people coming to our communities. So that's is there any questions on the lodging? We're just going to try to go over the different areas. And if you guys have questions as we go, I'll try to do this because I know that I need to make sure that you get all this information in a certain amount of time. Any questions on lodging? Right, great. FAM tours. I've talked to you guys before about FAM tours. They're familiarization tours. That's where we bring a publication in and we try to, for lack of better words, woo them. We want them to fall in love with the Dalles, and it's not too hard. We bring them, we take them out to dinner, we put them up overnight, we set itineraries so they're seeing our attractions, all the things to do. And I wanted to give you an example of what that does for value for the chamber. I've shared a couple with you along the way. Our most recent was Willamette Living. And thanks to Miss Izetta Grossman, she put me in touch with one of the writers last fall, and we brought them back in March. We set a pretty intense itinerary for them to accomplish in a day and a half, and we put them up overnight. And so they were coming with the full intent of writing an article called Day Tripper. This is something they feature in Willamette Living. It's a beautiful publication that's served and distributed mostly on the I-5 corridor of Oregon. And what we did is our total expenditures for bringing Elaine out was $310. That was overnight, and we paid for her food, and they had a blast. Oh my gosh, they had so much fun. And then we also are going to pay for one full page advertisement to go alongside that article. So it's a 4-page article. We're adding a full page in there, so that makes this huge presence for the Dalles. Well, 5 pages of an article value is $6,080. One full page of advertisement is $1,520. So we would, if we were just to write that and pay for that space, we're looking at $7,600. Instead, we paid $1,260. So we saved $6,300 by doing it that method rather than just hiring the publication to write a story. And they want to come back. And so they're like, okay, what's next? So we are doing that. When they got home, they instructed the publisher and owner of it that they had to give us a discount because they had so much fun. So now from any ads that we do, we'll save 30% on everything we do with them. Plus they threw in a free website ad for us until the end of the year. And I just wanted to let you know their readership for the year is 360,000. Their web visits every month is 10,000. So we feel like that is a really good use of those advertisement dollars and bringing them here, because now they're going to be watching everything we do and looking for another feature that they can put in their magazine to do that. The other example I want to use is Herod Outdoors. It's an outdoor TV station. They also do Herod Outdoor Cooking. We actually contract them for $9,500 for the entire year, which means our commercials are being shown weekly on their TV shows that they do. They're on they're actually on 5 channels, but I've only got the stats here for 2. One is a Sports Midwest. So this is all in the Midwest. So we're definitely reaching a different demographic that's willing to travel to this side of the US just to do outdoor recreation. Every show is averaging 62,000 viewers. Their other one is AT&T Sportsnet. They're averaging 35,000 viewers every week with these. On the one that's 62,000, our commercials are actually aired twice. We'd only get charged for once. So these are some different things that I work really hard to make sure that we maximize every dollar that we do with these different advertisers and that we're really getting out there. The third example I have for you is the Wild Wild West Bass Tournament that we hosted last year. We brought a full tournament that was televised, live streamed, social media, and just put out there everywhere. Now, the social media exposure alone was 258,000 different impressions. They have a special app just for the tournament that our bass fishermen really get into, and there was 80,000 users viewing that tournament. They really get excited over bass, and we'll just go with that. So the other piece of that, I do not have the numbers for the Pursuit channel because it's still being aired. So they have it on the Pursuit channel, and it's up there as a special strongman tournament that they did for the bass tournament. So it is still being aired. And once that finally is ended on Pursuit and just lives on YouTube, I'll have those numbers for you. But here's the good news. From doing that particular bass tournament, we now have 3 different tournaments in the Northwest that want to come to the Dalles every year. So we've already contracted with one of them, and they're the American Bass Association. They will be hosting 2 tournaments here live in May and June. So this is the effects of doing that one. And now our dollars are going even further and bringing more overnight guests to our community. So any questions on the FAMs and how we do that? Okay. Datify, the new software that we got last year. I'm still learning all of it. There is so much to this software. It's crazy, but it's actually kind of cool too if you're a nerd and you really like number crunching. I gave you 2 examples in your packet. So if you want to turn to the Dalles custom report and go through the first one, I'm just going to give you an overview because there is so much data in this. I think you probably would want to read it and absorb it. So the first one, the overview, I just did an overview of 2022. Going from January 1 to December 31st. It gives you the unique visitors, their average length of stay, how many days that represented, and how many trips that represented. Now, this data is only for visitors beyond 50 miles from here. So I'm not collecting any data on Hood River residents coming to the Dalles, any Dufur, or that they have to be 50 miles or further away so that we got an accurate alignment with Travel Oregon's regulations for advertising and marketing dollars used from the tourism of the transient tax of hotels. So last year we had 658,000 unique visitors to our community. Their average length of stay was 2.2, which is great. That went up 15.8% versus 2021. Those are the numbers we want to see. Unique visitors came down a little bit, but there again, we're looking at international travel opened up. So we had less unique, but our visitors are now coming and staying a little longer, which is great because then we're getting that overnight stay. We're getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're doing fuels, they're shopping, all of those things. So now they're spending more while they're here. So that's a better visitor for our community. It's less of a footprint because we don't have 1 million visitors staying a half a day. Rather that we have 658 staying 2.2 days. So they're spending more money and they're being a more efficient tourist actually for us. So those visitor days represent 3 million. And then the total trips is 1.3 million of those visitors. This is amazing data. And if you dig deeper, there's a lot in here. It tells you if they're male or female, what their average age is, what the average spending is. all kinds of demographics. So now what I do, I'm looking at this data. It's like, okay, I'm seeing that most of them are coming from Eastern Washington. I need to strengthen my marketing over there. Now they're not, they're coming from Portland and Seattle. So I'm strengthening up my marketing and media efforts to those locations because those are the people who are coming here. We're attractive to them in certain ages. So this allows me to do that. So that's what I'm using Datafy for. And then we're doing one more thing with it that we're trying brand new. And we did a 5-week sample. It just started 2 weeks ago. And this is advertisement with Datafy. They helped us do 8 different types and styles and sizes of ads. They're placing it into the digital media markets that they know work, but they're using our data straight from the database to do this. This is an expensive way to do this, but we'll have a dashboard after this for only 5 weeks that lets us know exactly who engaged, where they clicked, who clicked it, and all of those. So then we can really go and attack those media markets and get those attractive people that are wanting to come to the Dalles and are interested in us. So we can do a follow-up click through. And so that's what we're doing with those efforts. Everything is becoming a crazy digital world with the media and the marketing. So we're trying really hard to target those pieces. Any questions? Yes, Rod.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Mr.
go
Mayor.
I
ahead.
had a question mark when I read through this over unique visitors and I think you gave the definition is that they're over 50 miles away.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Rod. So that is what we're trying to do with Datafy. So we're trying to find those new markets. Where can we target and be better effective with our dollars that we use for advertising? One of the new markets that we're trying this year is we did this with the Cherry Festival with the Cherry Festival advertising revenue that we do. And we're doing the Spotify, but also Audio Go. And Audio Go represents over 10 platforms on the audio part. And we're targeting all of those people who are listening 50 miles out further. And so we picked different targets and different locations according to what most comes to us. And we will have the dashboard next week as to what that was. We took our Cherry Festival verbiage that we did for a local ad. We added it to some simple video or audio visual that had the Cherry Festival poster so that we could hopefully pull in more people into our community. So we're waiting to see those results because if they're really good, we can help all of our other events do the same thing with the TRT marketing grants. So we're super excited to see how this will result in, because this is where we're going, is people are listening to the audio and listening to those podcasts, and these little ads will pop up in the middle if you don't pay for the subscription. So you don't have ads. But we're trying different avenues and different places so that we can really push the Dalles out there. And then I'm happy to report the TRT grants. We committed to issue $30,000 back to the community of our budget from the tourism so that our events could have marketing dollars. And we so far have awarded $29,500. We have $500 left between now and June 31st. So if anybody's listening and they need a grant to help them with their event, they just need to come see us. But we have awarded 17 grants with those dollars going back into the community that was a part of our budget. We're super excited at that. And all of the events people, when they're doing this, they're just grateful that they get extra help because marketing is extremely expensive. So that is what we're doing there. Before we get to the back part, I just kind of give you an overall for future of what we're planning on doing. I still sit on the Historic Columbia River Highway Advisory Committee so that I make sure that the Dalles is there. The tunnel is all the way through. So they're working on that on the historic highway. They had hoped really that they would be open by next year, all the way, but that's going to probably be, it could be as late as 2026. The last piece they do not have funding is the Ruthton Point, and that needs $35 to $40 million to complete it. So just a little chunk of change. And so they're looking at trying to find that funding. Once they do locate it and then they will start the construction and design to finish that last piece. Then they will be able to ride all the way from Troutdale to the Dalles. I will be attending the Destination Development Boot Camp. The Travel Oregon team is going to be there with us. It's in 2 weeks, and our entire region is actually attending it. And we are pretty excited because the team will be working with us, and this is a smaller group, so we'll have a lot of one-on-one working with each of our communities. And our region has also made it a priority to have the rare student that they have helping with the lesser visited communities of our entire region. So we're included in that. And then we are also working on doing an RFP for video storytelling for new commercials and video assets. And we'll be putting that out to bid here in this next month. And then also just a little update, the chamber, for those of you who don't know or don't remember, we received a grant from Travel Oregon for support for diversity, equity, and inclusion training opportunities, translation and messaging and communications with an emphasis and focus on the local Latinx business community. So we'll be starting that within the next month and start working on that to make sure that they have the tools that they need and the communications are going out appropriately so that we can help our businesses be stronger. Because when we do that, we have a stronger tourism and a community and health of that. So any questions? And then if not, I'll go quickly to the new budget. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I know I threw a bunch of stuff at you guys, but all right. So I'm going to go straight to the new budget. You're very familiar with this. You have seen a lot of these different things. And basically the last year's budget was at 426,702 for the total. That included salaries, it included marketing, it includes those grants, it included some printing and those things. And so what I did is I looked at everything that's going on with inflation. Unfortunately, it's real. The inflation, and I made notes for you guys so that you know that the inflation for the US is at 8.7. The inflation for the cost of living in Oregon is 5%, but I only increased it by 4% on certain elements, not all of them. I kept some of those elements the same. If you look, only the asterisks I've highlighted because those have jumped to the 8% because I'm dealing with advertising across the entire US and not just in our region. So my proposed ask is 439,630. It's only a 4% increase, like I said, on 6 items and not the whole budget. So like I said, we're planning on contracting and getting new video assets. To do 3 to 5 videos is 20 to 25 grand. So I'm just kind of giving you what those costs are and what we are increasing. So do you have questions? I know it's a quick overview, but this is I keep it consistent so that it's not any different than some of the numbers being adjusted.
Any questions for Lisa?
Not at this time.
Well, you must have been very thorough as usual.
I love it. Well, guess what? I'm at my office most of the time. So if you do have any questions, I would love to have a conversation with you. I have sat down. I have had several conversations with Matthew and goals and how we want to accomplish and what we can do with tourism. So with that being said, thank you so much for letting me present. And thank you for letting me be a partner in this marketing. I really enjoy working with you.
Thank you very much. You mentioned Matthew's name, our city manager. Do you have any comments? I know you've met with Lisa several times.
No specific comments from me, Mr. Mayor. Lisa's absolutely correct. We touch base on a regular basis and worked over this scope of work in preparation for our budget process here coming up.
Thank you. Okay, item 6 is audience participation. Because of my volume issue, I will ask the city clerk to please read the applicable paragraph relating to audience participation. Ms. Grossman.
During this portion of the meeting, anyone may speak on any subject which does not later appear on the agenda. Up to 5 minutes per person will be allowed. Citizens are encouraged to ask questions with the understanding that the city can either answer the question tonight or refer that question to the appropriate staff member who will get back to you within a reasonable amount of time. If a response by the city is requested, the speaker will refer to the city manager for further action. The issue may appear on a future meeting a future meeting agenda for the city council consideration.
Thank you. Does anybody in the audience would like to address the city council for up to 5
Yes.
minutes? Okay, please identify
please.
yourself and your address, please.
Darcy from the Dalles, Oregon. I will try to keep this at 5 minutes. I did time myself and I'm pretty sure I'm at 5. I would like to first address that it is my belief that many of the things that the council is doing is having a negative impact on our community. The old adage, if you build it, they will come, is just as true today pertaining to your plans to create more pods and other living quarters for the growing population of homeless people that are suffering from drug addiction, mental illness, or other issues. Whether they are criminals, people down on their luck, or just lazy, they are going to come to our town and receive whatever they can for free off the backs of the hardworking taxpayers of Wasco County. This is not something new. It has been tried in other cities, and each time it has failed to the detriment of the community. Each time they have done this, all they have succeeded in doing is teaching people that they are entitled to more that they have not earned themselves. Although homeless is not a new issue, these issues have become worse in years since the county has begun implementing with funds the election of our current DA. He was given time at the last council meeting 2 weeks ago, and yet I feel he didn't tell the whole story. He first brought up his beloved chart and shows what a great job he is doing according to that chart. He has filed more cases last year than had been filed in previous years by the DA's office. The problem with this is he didn't talk about what happens after they file the case. How many of these cases were tried? How many cases did he win, lose? How many cases did he just allow a plea deal or just didn't follow up through at all? If everything is so hunky-dory, then why are crimes against Wasco County citizens on the rise? Businesses and residents are getting robbed, beaten, and even murdered. And yet, these victims are not getting justice in our courts. According to recent newspaper interviews with the DA, he's more concerned about crimes that criminals that they shouldn't pay fines and fees. And at the last council meeting, he was asked about Measure 11. It was obvious that he didn't care for the tough on crime stance that Oregonians instituted. The DA staff is now larger than it has ever been, but it appears things are not getting done beyond the filing of cases or referrals. I have heard that one of these new staff members will just send cases back no matter how cut and dry the case is, so they can put it off even longer. Business owners are trying to sell and get out while they can after being robbed multiple times and being told by the DA it's not in your best interest to have the offenders charged. One example of this is a company who has been in our community for several generations, but is now selling to an out-of-state company after this was told to them in front of a group of other business owners. According to my sources, officer morale is at an all-time low. Our officers do their job to the best they can, but if the DA isn't going to do his, they will get tired of wasting their time doing theirs. I know currently of at least 4 officers already planning to leave the force because of this. Perhaps this is why the numbers are down for referrals for the last couple of months. Our DA is more concerned about the pet projects where he gets to be more of a defense attorney again and help these criminals so they can stay out of jail and run free and not become a negative number on his chart. After his soft on crime, he is soft on crime and it is showing. He needs to do the job we as citizens elected him to do, and the council members should do yours as well and start looking into more of this instead of just making problems we have worse and spending our taxpayer money on projects that will force more of us to start looking elsewhere to live. Keep in mind, if any of us wanted to live in Seattle or Portland, we would have already moved there. none of us want Seattle or Portland brought to us, and that is what it is starting to feel like in the Dalles. It definitely is not the town I love. I encourage this council to make an abrupt about face on all these projects.
Ma'am, you have
Thank
30
you.
seconds. Go ahead. Hello?
That was it.
Oh, good.
That
Okay.
was it.
Good. You came in at right below 5 minutes. Good job.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone
Thank
else who
you.
would like to address the city council for up to 5 minutes? Anybody? Last call? Okay, that ends the audience participation part of our meeting. Item 7 is the city manager's report. Mr. Cleaves.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items for you this evening. I wanted to let the council know that I met with the library district at their board meeting last Tuesday. And it was a very spirited but productive conversation, I think, and we have some path and action items to move forward on that front. So I was very pleased to attend that meeting. We've recently completed some interviews for the executive assistant position, and we currently have several positions posted on the city's website. They include the senior planner, the economic development officer, the facility supervisor, a police officer position, equipment operator, and a construction and development inspector. So if you can please help us spread the word, it'd be very much appreciated. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaves. City council reports. We'll start with Council Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the 14th, I chaired the Climate Resilience Committee, at which we voted for the report under discussion. It was unanimous. Also on the 14th, I attended a citizen group that was making a presentation on a proposed high school bond. On the 18th, I participated in the Urban Renewal Board meeting. I'm not going to steal Chair Long's thunder there, but I will say that there's some encouraging and sort of exciting developments coming our way, I believe. I started reading our city budget, on which we'll be meeting, I believe it's next week. I enjoyed the Cherry Festival parade. It seemed sort of larger and more spirited than I'd seen in some time, which was good, good to be there to watch. And I've had several staff and constituent conversations in the last couple of weeks on various items. The end.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Runyon.
Just one meeting to report, the Columbia Gorge Veterans Museum. We met on the 13th and discussing our future move at this point. But the museum is trying to figure out a reopening date based on some of the plans that are ahead of us here in City Hall as we move from upstairs to downstairs, and planning an open house that'll coincide with that. But I think we'll be open on Thursday and Fridays pretty quickly here. I don't know if we've come up with an exact date. That was under discussion. That's all.
Thank you. Councilor Randall.
Thank you, Mayor Mays. I'm currently in Seaside, Oregon, attending the local League of Oregon Cities Local Government Conference, where I plan to attend several informative workshops and listen to some keynote speakers. On the 14th, I also attended the Climate Resiliency Committee, followed by a meeting with the mayor and Councilor Long for a briefing. And on the 18th, I was a guest on KODL Coffee Break, also with Mayor Mays, and discussed various topics with the host, Al Wynn. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On April 11th, I had a Urban Renewal Agency budget meeting. And then on the 18th, we had our Urban Renewal Agency meeting. We finalized our incentive program, got that updated, and we're looking forward to that. We also have one project that's in the works that possibly will fall outside of that incentive program, but they are working with our director, which is of course what we want to do for everyone in the Dalles looking to work in within our boundaries. We're trying to get the downtown core up and running as quickly as possible with as many improvements that are visual for people as we can. On the 17th, I met with the mayor and Councilor Randall. And on the 21st, I met with the city attorney. And I'm currently in Seaside as well to attend the League of Oregon Cities meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin.
I'm attending the League of Oregon Conference as well. Okay. Airport Commission meeting on the 20th. And urban development on the, I don't know, 18th, I think. I was also mayor for the day for the Cherry Festival and selected the mayor's float. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm going to forego my report and I'll double up on the next meeting on May the 8th. I asked the city clerk to please read the applicable paragraph for the consent agenda. Ms. Grossman.
Items of a routine and non-controversial nature are placed on the consent agenda to allow the city council to spend its time and energy on important items and issues. Any counselor may request an item be pulled from the agenda and be considered separately. Items pulled from the consent agenda will be placed on the agenda at the end of the action items selection section.
Thank you. Tonight, we got 3 items on the consent agenda. First is the approval of the April 10th council minutes. Second is a declaration of surplus property in the Public Works Department. And third is concurring with my reappointment of Cody Cornett to the city's Plan Commission. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Mays, I ask that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilor McLaughlin. Was there a second?
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved by Councilor McLaughlin and seconded by Councilor Randall to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 10A is a public hearing. Bear with me. Now is the time for a public hearing regarding proposed annexations of property into the city limits. Special ordinance number 22-598, a special ordinance annexing a certain additional property located in the urban growth boundary of the city of the Dalles pursuant to ORS 222.125. This is a legislative hearing to receive testimony regarding the proposed annexations. I'll open the public hearing and ask for a staff report. Following the staff report, I will call for testimony from the audience. At the conclusion of the testimony, the public hearing will be closed and the matter turned over to the city council for deliberation and decision. I'm now opening the public hearing and Ms. Cook, are you?
Hello, yes. I'm just going to share my screen. Thank you, Mayor Mays. Hello to City Council. Today we are discussing an annexation at 1304 West 13th Street here in the Dalles. So this property is located just outside of city limits off of West 13th Street, as you can see from the map on the slides. The blue area is the Dalles city limits, and then the red parcel is a subject property. Now, this property has a single family house that is connected to a septic system. The purpose of this annexation is to connect to the septic line or the sewer line in West 13th Street. So here's an overview of the review criteria outlined in the Dalles Municipal Code. So these first 2 criterion reference location of the property. This property is continuous with city limits, and it is a territory within the urban growth boundary. So this annexation is compatible and consistent with rational and logical extension of utilities and roads to the surrounding area, as the subject property is already served by city water. It is abutting a public right of way, and there's the sewer line within West 13th Street. And then we're going to look at how this annexation complies with the Dalles Comprehensive Plan. So Subgoal 2 and Policy 6 references the intergovernmental agreement between the City of the Dalles and Wasco County. So part of this agreement spells out the responsibility that the city has over annexation over urban growth boundary properties into city limits. So the proposed annexation is found to be consistent with this agreement. These policies reference how the subject property can be served by city facilities. So as mentioned previously, this parcel or existing single family home is already served by city water, and they received a utility verification for city sewer, and it can be served at this location with an existing sewer stub to the property line. And so staff found that it is consistent with, providing adequate facilities at this location. So it's a rather quick presentation, but I encourage, if you guys have any questions about this annexation, please feel free to let me know.
Izetta, is the mayor disconnected? Councilor McLaughlin?
Yes, I'm here.
I believe you are now the presiding officer of this meeting.
All
And
right,
so
well, thank you.
it seems Ms. Cook just finished her staff report, and we're in the
Yes.
middle of the public hearing for,
Right.
and so it's my understanding you might have a script in front of you.
No, I don't. I don't have the
Would
script.
you please do me the honor of authorizing me to take over the role of presiding officer for the rest of this legislative hearing?
I so authorize you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, good.
Thank you, Ms. Cook, for the staff report. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to testify in favor or opposition to this annexation? Seeing no hands in the audience, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to make similar testimony? In hearing none, I'm going to now close the public hearing with my gavel. And now it is appropriate for the city council to deliberate.
Do I
Is
have
there
any
anybody-
questions? Yeah,
Councilor McLaughlin?
go ahead, continue.
No, the floor is yours.
All right, then, does anyone have any additional comments or questions?
Just one thought, Counselor McLaughlin.
Yes,
It's always good when it's a property owner seeking to be annexed rather than us being seen as the adversary coming in. So I'm glad to see they were asking. And because they were already using, as you say, community services to begin with, that they are hooked up and whatnot, that makes it a win-win, in my opinion. So I just wanted to comment on that. And the cost to the city is really the staff time of doing the process. Here is basically it. There's nothing we need to do through public works, et cetera, in order to complete this, correct?
No, nothing with public works, or this is the last step in the process with the city.
Thank you very much.
I also agree with your comments, Councilor Runyon, that it's great when we have an addition without the objection, and that's what I was going to ask, if there's any objection in the audience, but there is none. So any other comments from councilors? Hearing none.
Council
And
President,
Yeah, yes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm invisible probably to you. It's hard.
Yeah, you are.
On Zoom. I just wanted to thank Ms. Cook for her presentation and walking us through all the criteria and how everything was met. That makes it really simple for me as a counselor to follow along and make sure everything is done. And I don't think you've done too many of these. This may be your first, I'm not sure, but you did a great job. So thank you.
I agree with that comment. Anything else before we move on? Do we have a motion?
Councilor McLaughlin,
Yes.
considering this is still a legislative public hearing, it would be appropriate to ask if any members of the council would like this ordinance read in full.
Well, would any counselor like this ordinance read in full?
No.
Very timid.
No. All right.
If not, it would now be appropriate to ask the city clerk to please read the ordinance by title only.
I agree. City Clerk, would you please read the ordinance by title only?
Special ordinance number 23598, annexing certain additional property located in the urban growth boundary of the city of the Dalles pursuant to ORS 222.125, consent and an annexation ANX number 23-tool.
All right. Thank you for reading. Now, do I have a motion? Is there anyone with the motion?
I'll make a motion.
There we go.
I'll move to adopt special ordinance number 23-598, annexing certain additional property located in the urban growth boundary of the city of the Dalles pursuant to ORS 222.125, consent annexation ANX number 23-tool.
Thank you. Do I have a?
By title only.
Yes.
By title only.
I'll second
do
that.
Good. Who was that?
Richardson.
Okay. Councilor Richardson seconded. All in favor, show of hands or yay?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Then that motion carries. All right. Thank you. We're moving on
Nice
now.
presentation.
All right. We're moving on to the next action item, B11B, which is Columbia Gore Regional Airport hangar lease with Shear. Yes.
Councilor McLaughlin?
Yes.
I believe, and I could be wrong, that actually we're on 11A, action item 11A.
Oh,
Special-
that was, oh, okay, let's go back up the bus. All right, we're on 11A, special ordinance number 23-597, accepting real property between East First Street and Second Street for the public purpose. For public purpose. And who's giving that report?
That would be me.
Oh, well then take it away.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
In 2014, the city vacated a portion of the public right-of-way, which runs parallel to both East First and East Second Street between Court and Washington Streets. And it's the alleyway that is right between the Blue Building and the Granada Theater. The city vacated that as part of a special ordinance, in special ordinance number 14-563. And it was intended to support the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency's development and disposition of what's known as the Granada Block. And at the time, back in 2014, I understand that there was the potential of siting a hotel and some related uses down that way. And so as a result of that vacation, title to the vacated alley vested in the agency, which was the abutting property owner at the time. One of the special criteria included in special ordinance number 14-563 is what's known as a condition subsequent, which means it takes place after the event happens. And it indicated that, well, if that redevelopment project failed, that hotel project failed to meet certain timelines that were detailed in what I refer to in my staff report and what's commonly known in the agency's world as a DDA, a development disposition agreement. If that project failed to meet those timelines, well, the agency should have rededicated the vacated portion of the alley back to the city. And that project ultimately never did meet those timelines, and well, there's no hotel there. And so in 2019, the agency ended up transferring some real property adjacent to the Blue Building pursuant to the terms of a different DDA entirely. But that transfer included title to the vacated portion of the alley. And in 2020, the agency transferred some real property adjacent to the alley to the owners of the Granada Theater pursuant to yet a different DDA, which also included title to the remainder of that vacated portion of the alley. Both real property transactions should not have included the alley in their transferring of title. And so the purpose of this action item and this special ordinance number 23-597 is to proceed as contemplated by the original special ordinance 14-563 and to rededicate the vacated portions of the alley back to the city. Staff was alerted to this matter after the Wasco County Assessor's Office reached out to some people at the city to ask them about, well, hey, what's going on here? And it was a great question. The special ordinance in 2014, I don't believe it was recorded, and so it didn't appear in any title searches. And so that was a very unusual oversight in that real property transaction. And so I reached out to the owners of the Blue Building and the Granada Theater, and in good faith, they've already signed, sealed, and delivered their copies of the agreement that is attached to and made part of the special ordinance, as well as the deed. And so in support of their good faith, I mentioned to them that this council would be considering this special ordinance here tonight. And so the motion that I'll be making at the end of this, or the motion I'll be recommending one of you all make, is to adopt this special ordinance, which would authorize the city manager to execute the dedication deed and the dedication agreement, which are all included in the staff report. As a result of the agency's inadvertent transfer of this alley right-of-way, the owners of those two portions of vacated alley ended up slightly overpaying on their property taxes for the last few years. The Blue Building ended up paying $211 more over a few years' time. And the Granada Theater, owned by Chuck Gomez and Deborah Liddell, ended up paying $355 more over a few years' time. And so part of this agreement involves the city reimbursing them to make them whole for those overpayments as a result of their ownership of the alley for a few years. And so as far as, well, those are the budgetary implications of this special ordinance. However, more importantly, I think, is the fact that if this special ordinance is adopted, both the City of the Dalles and the agency will hold title to the entire alley between East First Street and East Second Street, between Washington Street and Court Street. These last two portions of alleyway are really all that's left. And so with all that, my recommendation is to move to adopt this special ordinance number 23-597, a special ordinance accepting real property between East First Street and East Second Street for public purposes.
Understood. Any questions or comments from councilors? It appears to be housekeeping. Is that correct?
Yes, quite overdue, and about 9 years overdue. And so I'm happy to help play a small role in this.
And it seems the resolution is fair. So I'm in support of this. Any other comments? Questions? All right. Can we have a motion, please?
Does any counselor want the ordinance read in full?
Is this a title only, or?
It's not this is not a public hearing, and so it's really a formality.
All right.
We can, if any council would like it to be read in full.
Who asked that question? I can't tell from here.
The city clerk.
Oh, I understand. Okay. Does anyone want this read by title only?
No.
Okay, good. Then can I have a motion? Please.
I'll make a motion. I move to adopt special ordinance number 23-597, a special ordinance accepting real property between East First Street and East Second Street for public purposes by title only.
I'll second that.
Okay, good. We've got Counselor Randall made the motion and Counselor Long seconded. Do we have everyone that's in favor of this, please raise your hand or say yay.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, anyone against? So that carries. Thank you. Now we're up to Columbia Gorge Regional Airport hangar lease with Shear, correct?
Thank you very much, Council President.
All right.
Good evening, councilors. I've got a renewal of a 5-year lease with the Shear Spraying Company. That's one of our longstanding tenants at the airport. And they previously used to own their building, and now it's in 2018. It actually was one of our first reversions of property back to the city of the Dalles and to the airport. They've now had it leased as a rental for the airport for the last 5 years, and we are renewing this as part of our previous attempt to stabilize some of the rates and get everybody closer to a consistent square footage price. We've increased their rent on this property by 21 cents per square foot, which is a $250 a month increase to their existing $1,200 a month rent. The first month, with our 2.6% increase on July 1, the first month of rent or the first 2 months of their rent will be at actually $1,413, making the final rent, the remainder of the 5-year lease would be at the 14, or the remainder of the first year would be at $1,450. So the first 2 months of it will be at the $1,413. It's a 21% increase in their rent rate. And it will cause in the first year, it will be an increase of $3,000 a year in increased rent for the airport. If anybody has any questions, I will attempt to answer them.
And Shear Spray Company understands the rate increase, and they probably are not happy, but they understand the reasoning.
They do. And myself and the city manager and city attorney, we've looked at this quite diligently in comparison to the other rent rates that are on the airport and trying to bring up, it's an older building. It was built, I believe, in the mid 60s. And so it definitely needs some upgrading to bring it. If I was going to ask for the same price per square foot that we get from other buildings, I have a substantial investment to make to that building to bring it up to the same standards as our current newer hangars. And yes, they understand. And of course, nobody's ever real happy about having their rent increased.
But they would also get the benefit of having increased visibility and also improvements in the building, right?
Correct. And we continue to, as maintenance is needed, and there's things that we can do to enhance their building, their use of the building as well.
So they're getting a return.
Yes. And they've got a very, very fair rate even at the existing, with the increase, they are still substantially lower than if they had to rent a different space on the airport.
I heard another counselor
Yes, President McLaughlin, this is
Yes.
Richardson. One quick question. So Jeff, Manager Renard, I should say, this would raise their rate from 21 cents a square foot to what? Do you recall? I'm merely curious.
I think it was like,
Bear with me 1 second.
Like 24 cents a square foot.
no, it was more than that, I think.
5,760 square foot building. I remember that.
Yeah. It was like 40. Seems
They were at 21 cents a square foot. I apologize. That's where they're at. And now,
You get to just over 25 cents per square foot,
it will be at 25 cents a square foot.
25.41.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Okay,
Council President,
yes,
I just wanted to
Questions?
confirm. Yeah, I had a quick question. I just wanted to confirm that this went to the airport board on Friday of last week, right?
Correct.
They have any
yes.
motions coming out of that? Did they have any recommendations on any changes? Or did they recommend it for approval?
It was recommended for approval.
Okay. And this is on its way to Klickitat County, or is that tomorrow?
That is tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, in that case, President McLaughlin, I move to approve
Yes.
the Shear Spray 5-year lease contingent upon approval of the Klickitat County Commission.
Thank you, Councilor Richardson. Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second?
Randall
I think
seconded, but he
Randall
was still
did,
muted.
his mic was off.
Yeah,
Oh.
I apologize.
Okay.
You saw a
Okay.
second.
So Councilor Randall will second this motion. Is there any further debate or questions? In the hearing none, all in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Anyone oppose? All right, this motion carries. All right, now let's see where we are.
Mr.
Yes,
President Pro Tem,
yes,
before we go to executive session, there's two things I wanted to mention here because we do not have a city council meeting until the 8th of May. One is that on May 6th, the annual community cleanup that the Dalles Disposal helps us with, May 6th, that's coming up. And then secondly, a couple of days later, actually the same day, is after 2 years of the malaise, the Wasco County Pioneer Association is back with their annual reunion, County Pioneer annual event here in the Dalles, and people should be looking for information from Mr. Tom Peterson right there and others on the news cycle about those two events. Thank you.
excellent. I'd also like to comment, I've been in the city of the Dalles for 49 years, and I think I've participated in every Cherry Festival, either marching or being a part of it. And this year was exceptionally well done. And the whole event just seemed to be vibrant. Our city was vibrant. So I'd like to say good job, Chamber of Commerce and all that were involved in the Cherry Festival for this year. Okay, with that said, we'll go ahead and move into executive session. We'll go ahead and I will have to reboot, and as well as the other counselors.
Councilor McLaughlin,
Yes,
I have a script here that I'm happy to read if you'd like to authorize me
I
to
would.
do so.
I would love you to do that since I don't have the script.
I figured as much. The City Council of the City of the Dalles will now meet in executive session in accordance with ORS 1926602E to consult with persons designated to negotiate real property transactions. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the discussions or deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in the executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the room. Do we have an estimated time for when that might be? or a length of time. The city council expects to return to open session in about 20 minutes. Now would be a great time to take us into recess.
All right, let's move into recess now. The counselors that are with me at Seaside will have to reboot into the new executive council Zoom meeting. Okay.